I went to call you Fausty then. Or have you froze? Bloody hell, Liam. How have you managed to screw that up?
I think I fucked it up. Am I there?
Yeah, you're here now.
Okay. I don't know. It does it automatically, but then a big error message came up.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. Hello and welcome to Witchcraft Live.
You and your dodgy internet.
We're doing an Evocation / Conjuration talking today because people want to know about Conjuration and Evocation. So to start with, Chris, we've got to kind of talk about what the fuck Evocation is, because they know about Invocation, but I don't think they know about Evocation.
Okay.
So can you talk about Evocation? I know there's a video.
Invocation is
on the Witchcraft Live Facebook group, but I doubt anyone's fucking watched it.
Oh, okay. I'm sure they have. We get enough questions about it. Yeah. Invocation versus evocation. Yeah. Essentially, it's in the title. Vocation means movement. In means in movement.
I think of it in terms of if you're invoking, you're pulling something inside you.
Yeah.
And if you're evoking, it's like
present.
Eva. Yeah, I haven't got one for that. I just remember it by invocations inside, so it's got to be inside you.
Yeah.
Do you want
so the other one means outside
of you?
That's simple.
I think it depends, really. There's a lot of people out there that talk very badly of invocation because they don't want the spirits coming inside of.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about that, Chris?
That's why people wear
spirits
condoms.
Coming in you?
That's why you wear condom.
No. You use your magical protection, don't you? Like old book
magical
that we're talking about later, the old Solomonic book. These triangles of Solomon and the like are often touted for their ability to do magical protections. But are they as good as the condom? Because condom ain't 100% effective, is it?
Well, no, I suppose. Especially if you're using those Trojans.
Well, I thought Trojans were the good ones.
And Trojans are the
Trojan
American
condoms
ones.
the good ones? I thought they were the good ones. I thought it was the Durex you had to worry about.
Anything that's named after something that's designed to trick you into slipping in is really not a brand that you should be using.
Okay.
Anyway, this isn't Fausty, so stop talking about these things.
Okay, no. Comedy is for the Fausty Witches show.
Comedy is for the Fausty.
Serious business. Question and answer. Now, feel free, because this is a question and answer. You can just say hello to us, like this lovely person here saying hello. Or you can ask us questions about magic. Specifically, we're talking about today invocation versus evocation. And why are we talking about that today, Chris?
Well, we're preparing ourselves for Witch Wars 3.
Which way do you do it? Do you do it that way? Or do you
I do this because it looks like a W.
Okay. Right, okay.
Witch Wars 3.
Very good. Yeah. Right, so we will be announcing Witch Wars 3, the competition, what you've got to do. It will involve evocation. We'll do that at the end of Witchcraft Live Q&A. So the end of today. But basically, invocation versus invocation. So if you're conjuring up and talking to a spirit, dealing with a spirit, when you're invoking, that's kind of what mediums do. Possession work, that kind of thing. That's when you're kind of talking channeling. That could all come under the invocation kind of bracket. What we're talking about today is evocation. Now, evocation is when you've got the spirit, but you're wanting it to manifest in front of you. So you're not wanting it to manifest inside of you. It's a separate part. So really, when we're talking about the really old-fashioned classical types of witchcraft and spirit summonings, where some ghostly figure or something that appears in front of them, that's what we're wanting to talk about. Now, I don't think that this is as common as it was back in the day, Chris. Do you think
No.
people do a lot of evocation now, or do you think it's mainly invocation?
Well, it depends. I suppose it really depends on how you talk about it. Because I often, because we deal with a lot of shamanistic behavior and psychics, that is essentially inside without being inside. So people are used to experiencing the conversation to be going on internally. And some people get this confused with full invocation. So, full invocation involves possession work. But where you're still allowing it in, but not having control, is what tends to be happening when you're talking about shamanistic work or psychic mediumship. So it's not taking over, it's not full possession, it's just a mind meld, to use a kind of a Vulcan term. So it's more a blending of the two, but I would still call that a type of invocation. So I think people are used to the term when you're talking about invocation, and thanks to things like The Exorcist, they're used to the idea of possession. Whereas I don't think they're as much used to the idea of kind of it manifesting in front of you, because then they've got to deal with what it looks like. And I think actually that scares people more than what actual really matters. Hi, Jenny.
Yeah, I mean, the old psychic fairs and the like that you go up to, you're normally talking mediums channeling, aren't you? So more invocation. Yeah. You don't see many mediums and psychics at a psychic fair conjuring up the spirits in front of everyone for all to see. However, back in the day, that's exactly what you'd see.
Yeah.
Kind of physical mediumship, but also the conjuration and conjuring up of spirits in front of people. And it's kind of a little bit of a dying art, I think. And I do see that people still practice it, but it's mainly kind of secret societies or covens of witches, working groups, that kind of thing. It's not really a public thing. And I'm wondering whether this is kind of also contributed towards magic not being kind of seen as a legitimate real thing. Because there's not a lot of physical creepy stuff going about. I think that a lot of the paranormal investigators try to go out and do that, don't they? They try to evoke spirits. They're not really interested in invocation. They want things to jump about the room and jump out and go boom at them. But they don't understand evocation, so they can't get the system to work. Yeah. That's why they manage not a lot normally.
Hi, Ricky.
So in terms of evocation and approaches to evocation, if you're trying to call forth a spirit and have it manifest in front of you, the easiest way to do that, of course, is in the astral, because you could do an evocation in the astral. But if you want the fame and the fortune of being a badass magical practitioner from a mundane's perspective, they want you to pull in a spirit into the physical world so people can see it. So people that are psychics or not psychics, they can all see the spirit is there. And that's a sort of evocation that you don't see all that much. And I find quite tedious. I don't think it's really the sort of thing that you really do unless you're with beginners that are looking for that kind of experience of manifesting and meeting a spirit in the physical world for the first time. Or you're kind of showing off, I think. I don't know. How do you kind of feel about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that it's what we were talking about in Sacred Spaces. MySpace, was it, with the podcast?
Yeah.
That went out last week, right? The So, is what we're talking about there is to manifest something in the physical requires a very different set of, how do you normally put it, environmental preparations than what is required for it to just be in the space and make that connection. So I think what people want is the showmanship of a full evocation, but don't actually understand how that actually works. Whereas actually what they're used to doing is there being something there and someone like a medium pulling the answers. So even with one of these paranormal shows, it would be You know, they're calling the spirit with the table turning or the Ouija board or whatever, but the actual communication is normally going on with the person that is the medium of the group, because they've normally got some kind of medium on their team, or they're making it physical. The best part of their physical they're allowing is tapping or ghostly echoes, is the best that they can actually manifest. And there is arguments to say that actually how much of that is real energy, just escaping, and you're hearing it collectively as a psychic, the beginnings of kind of psychic development, rather than necessarily as sound traveling out from a different realm. So I don't think I answered your question, which is normally your job. But
what, to answer my own questions?
Yeah. No, I mean as in to go off tangent and not answer the question I asked.
Off on tangent.
And I forgot what your question was. But yeah, it's this, the showmanship, I think, is what prepares people for it. But actually, it's not practical usage if you're wanting real information. As opposed to, are you there? Is your name John? Did you have 3 children?
Okay, because versus evocation is, I can understand from a beginner's perspective, when you open the book on witchcraft or magic, you kind of want these ideas of, okay, this is strictly inside possession work or stuff that's coming inside. This is strictly outside. But the more you go into it, the more the lines are blurred. So, for example, I did a certain working with Apollo. And I did an evocation because I wanted Apollo to appear in front of me physically.
Well, he does look good.
That happened, but that happened in the form of Apollo possessing someone, walking to the location I was in, and then basically standing in front of me. So that's kind of a little bit of both, isn't it, Chris? Because I technically am not invoking it, but Apollo decided to come in the form of another person. Also, really, when you're talking evocation, which this is the secret of evocation in terms of defining what it is I would say that when you're doing evocation, you are giving, or a spirit is essentially getting a physical body in the physical world. Okay.
Yeah.
So with invocation, it's dwelling inside of you or a medium or whatever. Whereas with evocation, you're summoning it to appear before you. Now, whether that appears before you in the form of some kind of smoky, etheric, weird kind of thing, whether it appears in you in the form of a swarm of flies or something, you're really talking, remember, physical world, so it has to have a physical body to appear in front of you. Now, the way in which a lot of mediums see, so psychics and that, is that what they're not doing is they're not looking with the physical eye, so they're not able to physically see someone there. What they see is the energetic profile and what that thing projects into the mind that can pick that up, because if you're a psychic, you have that ability to pick up projections and to see the energy formations and that, so you're able to see it. With evocation and classical evocation, you're really talking about getting a spirit to have a physical body so that everyone around can see it and it can physically do things. Now, that's generally speaking not considered to be a very modern approach to magic. And when people tend to talk about working with spirits these days, really, it seems to be a lot more, I've heard this spirit will do this thing, I'm going to call on it and ask if it will do this thing for me. So it's kind of like using them like the old Lesser Key of Solomon type, which we'll get to later. Using them kind of to help you do something. Really, you're either paying them for their services or you're asking them to do it. And I think you picked up on something important, which was kind of the fear level. People being worried about actually physically seeing something in the room. You know, a lot of people are scared of the possession work in that. But I think a lot more people are more worried about things actually appearing in front of them physically.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of some basic approaches, is one of those things that we've kind of got to get our definitions and understandings on the same page. Because if I'm talking about, okay, I want to talk to a medium and I'll have the medium channel the spirit, that would be kind of in invocation, because going in there. If you're talking about doing a ritual with psychoactive drugs, would that be considered evocation? Is a blurry line, because technically with the use of psychoactive drugs, what you're really doing is you're helping push that psychic ability. So really what you're doing is you're able to see the energy there. It's not manifested
rather
in the
than more
world.
of a manifestation.
Okay?
It's
so it
it's
really
not more of a
You're able to
manifestation.
pick up on it and
It's
see
more of a
with
view.
those eyes. So I personally wouldn't class it as evocation. I'd class it as a kind of a blur between the two, because if you do evocation, no matter who it is in the room, whether they've got psychic ability or not, should be able to see it. A lot of the time, people are doing evocation and the psychics can see it, but that's not really evocation. That's just general psychic work. And we do talk about it's more useful to develop psychic ability to see spirits and the like, partly because going through the rigmarole of essentially getting a spirit to habit some sort of physicality in this physical world uses up a lot of energy. And most spirits, in fact, a lot of the spirits a lot of people tend to work with, aren't able to do that. So it's a lot about power and about understanding the physical constraints of this universe and able to manipulate things to happen. Now we have got, I think we've got a couple of questions. So one of our questions, can the living have their spirit evoked? So if I shout out to someone in the following room and say, oh, you come in here, and they physically walk in here, that's technically evoking them because they're coming into the room physically. If you're talking about getting the spirit of a person and pulling them into the area and then giving them another body, then technically you could also do that. But really it depends on where your definition of invocation and evocation lies. Most of the time I see, Chris, when people say evoke, they mean conjure and pull in, and they don't really care. I want to evoke this god, or I want to evoke this goddess. They really just want it to come in any form whatsoever. Because what you need to remember about a lot of practitioners is that they don't really care. They don't care about exactly how the spirit comes. They just want the spirit to fucking come. Most beginners, they're happy for the spirit to come psychically, for the spirit to come in the form of an astral, in a dream state or something like that. They don't care. They just want it to turn up. Whereas really when we're talking about the secrets of evocation, we're talking about, okay, what is that spirit able to do for itself? And how can it impact this physical world and interact with it? And then you as a magical practitioner making up the kind of difference, making up for the inability of the spirit. So spirits of the dead, quite weak. You know, they did spend some time here, you know, being living, but spirits of the dead, they're not able to do a huge amount. When they appear to people, they tend to use that kind of psychic channel, which is why some people can see them, some people can. You could take a spirit of the dead and you could create the necessary environment for it to be evoked and come into the physical world, but it would require a lot of tinkering. Okay, so it's quite a difficult, specific art. Generally, if you wanted to speak to a spirit of the dead, you don't want to put a lot of effort in because it is pretty boring. But assuming you did want to talk to them, you'd probably just do it psychically, conjure them into the astral. It's easier rather than actually trying to fully evoke them into physical manifestation is what we're talking about in front of us. Other spirits can do that fairly easily if they're quite powerful and had a hand in creating this physical universe in the first place. They can do it quite easily. Other spirits can't, And then other spirits again kind of struggle with certain manifestations and other manifestations. The real trick to how you perceive spirits is you've kind of got to work out, is this spirit physically here? Does it have a physical body? Or am I just seeing it with the psychic eyes? So most of the spirits of the Goetia or spirits like systems like that, what a lot of them, a lot of magical practitioners use psychoactive drugs, so they see things. But what a lot of the times that manifestation is you seeing it on a psychic level, where that spirit is tapping into your brain, using all of the dictionary of symbolism and imagery in your brain to create a visual thing that kind of sums up what it's about. So we've got the traditional idea of the what is it when you put a bunch of animals and shit together to make a person? Chimeras, yeah. So you've got the idea of the chimera. If you see a spirit that's kind of looking like a chimera, lots of things jumbled together, the chances are what that spirit is tapping into your psychic ability, and your mind is trying to decode that energy, trying to decode it. So symbolically is adding all of these things together. Oh, it's got lots of eyes, which symbolizes the fact that it's got a lot of sight, whether that's psychic ability, physical ability, what. All of these things, always got to tell, what does that symbolize? It's got venoms, what does that symbolize? It looks quite monstrous. It looks like a predator, what does that symbolize? All these things, that, to be honest, a lot of it is invocation dressed up as evocation.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd say.
Which
about
I think that is what people are used to.
That's what
is
people,
that you're opening up your psychic sight and your senses in order to allow an intermediary to make happen. The closest you get with some of them might be, we talked in the session, people asked about that familiars video I did a while ago, when you're talking about another intermediary where you're providing a vessel for another entity to enter in and out of. So it's not invocation for you, it's evocation for you, but invocation for the vessel, in which that arrangement allows you to have a communication. I think people like the showiness of a physical apparition, but they don't actually necessarily care too much about the mechanics and what is actually required in order to make something like that appear. Like I said, unless you've got a helpful hand, like you were saying, of a deity that is used to being in this physical manifestation, in which case they might arrive in new ways. So it might be emissaries or envoys, or, like you said, bugs, a swarm of bees arriving at you might be a physical manifestation of what you're asking to happen. But that doesn't necessarily help with the communication part, which is normally the point that most of us witches would invoke or evoke an entity, is in order to get answers or assistance in something. Whereas with a paranormal investigation show, it's them trying to get proof, hence why they want a physical apparition, so that they have documentable proof of the other side, which is what that's all about. Whereas we know that exists, we just want to make it useful, which is the difference for us, is we want to actually, okay, well, regardless of whether or not there's heavens or hells, can I speak to it and can it help me do something practical? Because obviously us witches are the practical variety. So, when it comes down to evocation, it's a tricky one to work with, which is why, like we say, invocation is the natural way to do something, because if it's inside, it can have a conversation. Or, like you say, invocation dressed up as evocation, where there is some entity there, but the connection is on a subconscious level that allows the conversation to happen, facilitates the conversation. Whereas a full evocation in front of you is quite a tricky task to achieve, because it requires sacred space it requires you to create the environment on which that is possible, which might be a good segue to kind of talk about fucking, you know, my favorite subject, Solomon's magic circles and all that bollocks.
Well, we've got a couple of questions, so we better try and pick up on some of the questions, because otherwise they'll get hidden by other chats and stuff. So, gotta say, I have a keen interest in appearances. I've never seen a physical appearance, but I definitely stick around to see. It's interesting. So yeah, so with evocation, obviously, the real blurry lines is the middle. So the things where it's appearing there and you can see it, but it's not physically there. That's the thing. So generally speaking, most of the time I personally would use invocation because I find that the quickest, simplest and easy method. If I'm working with a group, then I'd probably do some kind of blurred in invocation / evocation. So it'll be there, but you would need psychic ability to pick the thing up. If you're really wanting to show off, or if you're wanting a spirit to do physical things for you, we can get onto that later, then you would want it to have some sort of a body. That would be one of those things whereby that's such a complicated thing that most people don't talk about that. From my experience, I don't see a lot of people talking about the ability to create a physical body, even if it's temporarily, for a spirit to live in, whether that's in the form of flesh and blood as a person, or whether that's in the form of it picking up objects and using those as kind of like a vessel. Sometimes things like shadows and stuff like that, obviously that can be used. If you get a light and you shine it on a shadow, but the shadow does not disappear, that could be seen as a physical body, because obviously it is actually interacting on a level that means that, you know,
it's in the physical realm,
and the light is kind of in the physical realm, even if just touching on it. But there we go. So also the next question: do I have to in an altered state in order to be able to call an entity? Is my altered state or the conjuration itself the key success of an evocation? I would personally say that evocation, because you're creating and helping, well, you're not really creating, you're helping a spirit essentially being able to have a physical body in this world. Or you're calling on a spirit and it's deciding to have a physical body in this world, because some spirits have the power, because they have a huge amount of power over this world, to be able to do that if they want, at any whim. A lot of them don't. Some of them do. But if you're wanting them to manifest, or a spirit to manifest, then you need to choose the method that's appropriate for what you're trying to do. And if you're wanting evocation where it has a physical body, you need to understand what that spirit is, what it's able to do, and how that spirit can adapt to work within a body. Okay. So a lot of the time, sorry, yeah.
I was just going to say, that's the reason when you use kind of the more shamanistic methods, the more traditional shamanistic methods, that there is normally a fire or a smoke or a body of water that allows the physical to show. So it might be that the shape of the fog, of the smoke, changes, or images appear in the fire. Those kinds of evocation allow it to you're giving it something to manipulate in order for it to have that conversation. It might not be a full evocation where they have a physical body, but if they can if you provide them with a medium to manipulate that is outside of yourself, otherwise, like you're talking about altered states, you're meeting it halfway there. That is what we were talking about, invocation dressed up as evocation. Whereas actually, if you're providing it a medium to manipulate, that might be, you know, weather or fire or smoke or a body of water, in where it is capable to actually manipulate shapes in order to show its appearance. Where, you know, which is why the shamanistic method uses that to draw in. When they're raising that energy in, they're providing enough of a vibrational change, a kind of energy change to facilitate a movement. But then at the same time, they might have to then use peyote or whatever in order to actually join the psychic connection. Again, all of that is invocation dressed up as evocation. So, you know, if you're wanting to fully form something, the conjuration part has to be the work that you're actually doing, not the altered state or the psychic development work.
The reason why we're choosing evocation as an extremely complicated and difficult witch wars, because of course our witch wars, they get quite difficult and then they ease off. This is going to be a very difficult round because the knowledge level and ability of a magical practitioner to actually make a full physical manifestation in this modern age is quite a lot to ask for. You know, most people tend to opt for invocation, you know, so this kind of thing, you really need knowledge of the spirit to understand how that spirit could use a body and what that body would look like. So, for example, if you wanted to build a physical body for, I don't know, nature spirit or something like that, it's probably not going to cope well with a humanoid type approach or a humanoid type body. What that spirit could interact with nature around it, because that's within its domain. So if you had grass, long grasses, and all of those swaying together and making a shape, wind, that kind of thing, that stuff, that would be something that that type of spirit would probably be able to control. However, some more, I wouldn't say advanced, but stronger spirits that certainly have a lot of power over this physical world, often referred to as kind of creator spirits or gods. So we're talking gods and goddesses now. They would be able to manipulate in such a way that they could actually appear before you in the form of kind of some sort of humanoid type shape. Some things are a little bit more iffy and kind of, well, they're kind of strong, powerful, but at the same time they do struggle with the physicality of being a physical being. What they're normally able to do is manipulate other things. So when we talked about shadows and the like, you may call on and evoke something, but it may turn up in the form of a shadow, hashtag shadow people type thing, which, so here's the point, if you removed and put all of the light sources on it, that shadow should still be there. So it's not going to be the trick of the light that you see a lot in Black Mirror work or crystal ball stuff, that kind of thing. The idea of the shadows being cast on it. You are talking about the manipulation of actual light, you know, which is subtle manipulation of light can be turned into something quite weird and wonderful when it comes to kind of shadows. Shout out to shadow work, but not that kind of shadow work.
No,
but yeah, it's a very it's a strange one because of course the evocation, I think our ideas of evocation are more classical witchcraft perspective of evocation, or a classical magical practitioner, whereas most people's ideas of evocation are modern. So a lot of the time when you're talking evocation in the modern time is you're talking, well, I can see the spirit there, it's there, and I've taken a load of drugs to get to a state, an altered state, whereby I can see it. But that's psychic ability then. Other times when you're talking about following certain protocols, you are still tapping into that psychic ability. But what they're doing is that spirit is not actually manipulating the surroundings. The spirit is manipulating your mind, because of course your mind decodes what your eyes are picking up. So technically some spirits, if they understand enough about human psychology, they can manipulate the mind for you to be able to hear. So they kind of get in between where the eyes start feeding the information and where the brain interprets it. In between that state, they kind of hack into it and then project what they want to project in that. I know there's quite a lot of exciting experiments that are being done in regards to sound with that, but we won't go on with that. because
Yeah.
that's more science.
What we're basically saying is either you need to provide the energy, or it needs to have enough energy to bend the laws of physics. So this is what we're talking about, is in order for something to manifest physically in front of you, it is either going to have spare bodies to come in, i.e. bees or whatever, or it can manipulate what is available for you, or it needs to have enough power to manipulate space, essentially space-time light. So, it can appear in front of you as a manipulation of light. You read everything in front of you based on what you see, what is reflected upon it, how light enters your eyes. So if it is capable of bending light for you to appear in front of you as a full manifestation, you're dealing with some deity level shit there.
Yeah, something pretty big. So our next kind of question from Helen, or I think it's just a statement. I agree with you about the showiness of an evocation, but I think the real reason I want to evoke a spirit is to prove to myself I can actually do it. I've tried, but haven't been able to so far. I'll keep trying though. Obviously, you only truly fail really when you give up. So definitely keep trying. Hopefully we can help a little about that. We'll go into a little bit more about the, I suppose, metaphysics, science, magical, work behind that in a bit. In terms of the kind of evocation perspective, though, I do kind of see it as almost from back in the day a kind of rite of passage, because it's one of those things that there's two things that I think the evocation is important. One is that the knowledge level and the ability of the magical practitioner in able to understand the physical world and the spirit world. You need a fair amount of knowledge to pull those things together to actually help a spirit manifest. The second thing is that when you find spirits that are really easy, they find it really easy to manifest here, or can just do it on their own without the need or help of you, that is a spirit with a considerable amount of energy power, but also, ability to affect the physical world. So when we're talking, and we've met a lot of these people out there that fall for weak spirits that will talk the talk, and they'll try and manipulate you into teaching you and the like. But then actually you'll find that the power level of the spirit and the abilities of that spirit is pretty weak. We'll see a lot of this in certain religions, because a lot of the time certain spirits, because they're weak, they try and get people to feed them energy and then survive off that energy. We've found, and I suppose we shouldn't really go into details, Chris, should we, of magical practitioners that have been duped into serving spirits and working with spirits that they're basically kind of like the minimum wage workers of the astral world. They ain't all that, and yet, literally, I mean, we've gotten some practitioners, after having dealt with some things like that and being tormented by things like that for years, to just literally blow them away with the slightest bit of energy, and they've just been washed away. When you're talking and you find, spirits with a considerable amount of power to affect this physical world, you can't just blow them away with a simple energetic kind of wave. And that's really the sorts of spirits that, if you want to get to a decent level within magical practice, that's the things you should be learning from, and that's the things you should be working with. Not necessarily these kind of airy-fairy new age servitors, forms, and egregores a lot of the time. I hate to say it. Okay, so how much does timing factor in, time of the year or death, that kind of thing? So what we'll do is we'll go with the we'll talk a little bit about kind of the methodology of how you go ahead and do the evocation. I just want to see if there's any other questions with regards to what we've already said. Are you using a spirit's power, your own, both? So yeah, that goes into the how you do it. Is it not the altered state that's important, but the physical medium in which the entity can manifest? Okay, so in terms of obviously that, you're remembering that the Physical medium, you're talking middle ground. So if you're talking mediumship, that's the invocation, not evocation. Okay, so it doesn't really matter with that. I don't know if this is going off topic. You mentioned the energy needing a physical body. How about channeling? Is that the same thing? So obviously, for some people that are coming in now, you might not have listened to the first part of the talk about invocation versus evocation. If it doesn't have a physical body or is manipulating something physical, that is working on a psychic perspective, psychic channel. So that is some form of invocation. Really. We would put that distinction of invocation. If you're using psychic ability, it would be more in the invocation. If you're seeing something on the astral or whatever, that would kind of be more on the invocation, because you're using psychic ability to see it. It's not really there. It's the blur between invocation and evocation. What we'd call like fool's gold falls in evocation. Is not an actual proper evocation. We would mark you down for that. So in terms of how you pull off an evocation, so the one thing that you need to know is that when you get prescribed books like this one that teach you how to do an evocation and give you a ritual, that is kind of like the person that is saying, pick up your screwdriver, hold it in your right hand, do this, turn clockwise that amount of times, then pull off that switch and then take that wire out. You're trying to be kind of doing a cookie cutter routine, hoping that the thing you want to happen will happen. So what you're essentially doing is you're taking a recipe from someone else that you trust more, not understanding the ingredients of that recipe, and more importantly, not understanding that there are a lot of factors involved in evocation. So people do write rituals. There's one in the Lesser Key of Solomon with the whole triangles of manifestation and all that kind of thing. What they try to do is they kind of try to cover, okay, we know we're in this physical world. We know this magical practitioner might be able to do this, that, and the other. What we'll do is we'll make a procedure that might work most of the time, you know. And it will depend on the external factors. One, it depends on the spirit and what the spirit's able to do. The second, it will depend on the general energy of the area, what you're trying to combat, what you're trying to push against. So, if you're picking up rituals and formulas and the like that have not been made by you, you're a cookie cutter magician, which means that you're a Betty Crocker, just add water, or just add intention, as they say these days. What you're doing is you're hoping that someone else has given you the correct formula that will work in this instance. What a proper chef does is they take the ingredients, they look in the fridge, and they say, I've got these ingredients, and then they think and put in their mind as to what ingredients they could actually turn into something, and they taste it and they sample it and they see, is this right, is that not right? So what you're doing is you're not understanding the actual formulas for, you know, the secrets of how the invocation works. So the secrets of how the invocation works, some people will think they kind of know, some people will think that, going back to how I think one person put timing factors, so they'll think, oh well, the person that wrote the ritual knows that for this spirit it would be easier for them to manifest it at night, and it would be easier for them to manifest under a dark moon or something like that. So they write that in the evocation, in the ritual that they then give to you or publish. Now, what you need to understand is you need to understand why that is. Because if it doesn't work, do you know why it was supposed to be on that dark moon? Do you understand, you know, was that a one-off? I don't know if I'm kind of going a bit too off topic, Chris.
A little bit, but I think it's still relevant. It's that kind of, at the end of the day, what is written there is that person's method. So if you are following the same with a cooking recipe for a bolognese, There are hundreds and hundreds of different ways to make the bolognese. You can follow the person's specific method.
Yeah.
But what's actually better to make you a better chef, and therefore a better practitioner, is to understand why those ingredients are used and how they get how does that become perfect. And when you're that good a chef, you would literally just be able to cook from sight. Don't need to weigh it, roughly how much you'll make this. You don't get the scales out every night in order to make your tea. There is an acceptable level of mistake that is allowed for you to still taste like a bolognese, even though oh, actually that wasn't as good as the one I made last week. But you haven't had to weigh out those ingredients and exactly 400 pieces of pasta, and then and they need to be this color and that color. So what you need to do is understand your ingredients, how it works, and more importantly, when it comes to evocation, you need to understand, one, what the power level of the spirit you are trying to conjure is. So is the factor, is it capable of doing it without your help? If it's going to be a deity, you're probably not going to need to, other than provide the right bait to actually interest them in coming.
Want to come.
It's got to want to come.
That's the secrets of evocation then, with a big actually making them want to come.
Yeah, so when you get to that power level where you're kind of going, okay, does Hecate want to actually manifest here? You kind of go, well, why would she take the time to bother with you and your little shitty exercise? So, is that part of kind of going, okay? Whereas when you're going from the bottom end and saying, oh, okay, I want Uncle Dave to come back and tell me where he's hidden this amazing, I don't know, necklace that was supposed to go to Auntie Ethel, but it's never got there. If you're having to go and speak to, where is he? Like, has he been dead 300 years? Has he potentially been recycled and reincarnated somewhere else? Did he die last year? Is he still in, still in the astral plane, waiting around before he gets moved on? Like, where are you pulling him from, and what is required for him to manifest? Now, with this, we are with the which was 3, sorry, which we'll do after this. We are asking for a specific thing, so therefore, in that situation, you need to evoke. Invoke is not good enough, and an invocation masking as an evocation is not good enough. But it depends on what you're attempting to do. So for this purpose, it really does depend on what you want to achieve. If channeling is all you want to do in order to get the answer from Uncle Dave, then that's good enough. If you're wanting to actually see Uncle Dave in front of you to prove that you can do it, like Helen was saying, then in that situation, what is going to be required? Because you can guarantee Uncle Dave does not have the power to fully manifest in the physical. His physical body is gone. Unless you're talking he died a few weeks ago, and that's physical necromancy, and that's slightly different altogether. If you're wanting to raise Uncle Dave in order to go and show you where he put the necklace, like, that's a bit different, and isn't evocation either. So actually putting someone back in its original physical body is not evocation. That is physical necromancy.
Is that cheating?
That is also cheating.
I would say with physical necromancy, yeah, because the physical necromancy is an interesting one. So we should probably go off on a slight topic with this, because within physical necromancy, which is a very dark art that's not discussed, it's the sort of people that gather around with a lot of, I don't know, goth-looking types that think they're all badass magicians and witches, left-hand path people. They normally have the YouTube channels where they wear color-changing contact lenses. They're well into the dark arts, like the physical necromancy, because physical necromancy is dealing with corpses, essentially. So what you could say is, you could say, okay, human spirit is used to being in a human body. That's how human spirits interact. What I need is a fresh corpse to put that spirit back into a body temporarily. Physical necromancy for you. Kind of like the Mary Shelley Frankenstein's monster type thing, that kind of thing. Yes, people do still practice physical necromancy. I don't really. If I was dealing with a human spirit, I would want them, and then I would want them gone. I wouldn't be going to the rigmarole of helping them get a physical body, because I don't think that really is a very good idea to give. Well, we could go into that on a different day, but basically, you know, so really, to cut a very, very long story short, because Michelle's kind of touching on some interesting points here. Are you using a spirit's power, your own power, or both? Okay. How do you build enough personal power to do it? So, what you need to understand is the psychology of the spirit you're dealing with. So you need to understand and remember that it needs to understand how to work the body that you're giving it, essentially, or helping it manifest or helping it get. So something that had a hand in creating humans probably understands the human body better than you do. I don't know, something else, like a nature spirit or something that's kind of sentient, but not perhaps the intelligence isn't the same. Certainly the psychology isn't the same as a human, is not really is gonna struggle with a human type body. So the clues that you would take when you start with evocation, you would start with, okay, it's all about the intelligence, all about me knowing about the background of this spirit. If it's a nature spirit, what is the closest thing it is able to do to mix with this physical world? So think of a spirit of the land, okay? So the spirit of the land may be the spirit of a forest, say. Well, that spirit of the forest, we know that is most at home in the forest. That is its environment. The closest thing to physical manifestation it's able to do is to dwell within the trees of the forest. It kind of already has a physical body there. So with evocation, what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to take what it currently is able to do and achieve, and then push that further, which will depend on your own abilities, power level, whatever. So essentially, remember what you're talking about is, I would treat it as, and I'm probably going to be politically incorrect here, but I don't mean to be, I'd think of it almost as a disability. So if you go to a shop that specializes in helping people with certain physical disabilities, you might find wheelchairs or blades that you put if you've lost your leg, you know, that kind of thing. It helps you make up for something, gives you a tool essentially. That's what you're talking about with successful evocation, generally speaking. You either goes into one or two categories. It can do it itself and it just needs to want to do it, in which case that's all about bribery. Or it can get so far, but it needs help to get further. Okay, and the help that you're able to give is going to depend on how far that spirit's going to be able to manifest. So, nature spirits, think about, where is that spirit? Where does it live? Where does it dwell? What can it interact with? Something a little bit further outside, there's often, classified as a nature spirit, which really isn't, the Fae. Okay, the Fae are spirits that don't really live in this physical world, but they do come into the physical world and fuck about with it. If you look at how they can interact, you could kind of supercharge a Fae. You could evoke a Fae and get it to have a physical body of some description. But what you need to understand is, how does it manifest in general on its own? And then how can I take that and kind of, to a certain extent, magically evolve it? So obviously, when it's talking about spirits of the dead people, having it come into a body that's a dead body would kind of mean, evocation to a certain extent. Physical necromancy, evocation, grey area again, not just ethically, but grey area in terms of magical classifications. God or a goddess, how does that thing want to manifest? If it's a big thing, how is it going to manifest? Well, what does a sun god manifest as? A lot of people would consider it to be manifested in the form of a sun. Sun's quite big. It's a very vast, big thing. So some people will try, with evocation, try to pull a spirit or get a spirit to manifest into something. So a lot of the mistakes people have is they look up at the sun and they think that is the spirit, when in reality you could think that's a symbolic representation of that spirit, or you could think, sun god, sun, that seems like the perfect physical body for that spirit to have, perhaps. Okay, so that is a physical body. You can be thinking about, okay, the symbology here, pulling it into something. So we're talking pulling it into an object, but an object that's perfectly tailored for that type of energy. In fact, so much so that they name the fucking thing after the god or energy that you could pull into it. That would be considered basic evocation, I think, Chris. When we're talking more complicated evocation, I think we're talking about creating monsters and the gods and goddesses and the like that walk among us. So not to get too religious, but there is an old story in the Bible of Sodom and Gomorrah where the angels came down and walked among men. They physically walked, as in this wasn't just an invocation where they appeared in the form of psychic imagery in front of someone. They actually physically walked around and people talked to them and tried to touch them and that. In fact, if you go and by that story in the Bible, they actually tried to rape them because they were quite pretty. But we'll leave that to one side. We're talking actual physical
are you going to stick to the topic at any point today?
Actual physical human,
because we're almost at an hour.
You're talking about taking a angel and you're cramming it into a physical being. Okay, so yes, you could do that. There's potential to do that. So what you need to think of, Chris, is the ecosystem, its ability, and then you're making up for that. And that's going to be completely different depending on the spirit. That's why things like this, where they say, oh yeah, I'll draw that Solomon's triangle and this and that and the other and try to evoke it into a looking glass or whatever the fuck it is. They're really pulling it into the astral world and then using psychic ability to view the astral world. I wouldn't class that as evocation. Okay? I wouldn't.
Okay. I think we're making this sound far harder than it actually is. Because we keep using the term physical. We keep using the term physical body. And I think that is going to scare lots of people into kind of going, okay, well, that sounds really hard, because it is. Yes. But I don't think it needs to reach that level for it to be justifiable as an evocation. But what we need to probably clarify is an evocation under normal circumstances necessary? It's not. The invocation would normally be enough in order to actually have that conversation and what you're attempting to do. What we're trying to do is give you an idea of how different a full evocation is. So an evocation is you're going to select spirits that mostly have the power to do this themselves, because actually providing the power and the circumstances for you to get something that doesn't have the power itself to have a full evocation is a lot of work. So to go back to what Michelle was asking, is the fact that you need to be able to raise enough energy of the right kind of energy in order for that to happen. So if you'd got a particular kind of spirit that sat in a solar energy, you would need to be able to raise enough solar energy. So this goes back to Mikhail's question earlier, I think it was, that was about time of day and all that kind of jazz. Is that relevant for that entity to manifest at that time? So if it is a case of, it says in the book that it uses a dark, can only appear on a dark moon kind of situation. Why is that? that you should be able to understand what energy it requires to have a full manifestation. So if it is requiring that level of that particular kind of energy, you know, it is going to need that. So, you know, if, you know, and also to be a little bit more literal, just in case that went over your head also, there is arguments there are arguments to and against when using the full moon. Are you using the moon's energy, or are you using solar energy redirected at during the night? So, you know, do have a thought process as to what energy is required.
Or a filter.
Yeah. So are we actually just filtering out a particular kind of energy from the solar stream that is then being magnified for your use during the full moon? So is it moon energy or lunar energy that that particular spirit requires for the manifestation, or is it a particular kind of solar energy? And if that's the case, then that solar energy is available all the time, not just during the full moon. But you need to be able to filter out the energy it doesn't like. So, you know, these are all ways of you providing the energy that's needed. The energy from you should always be, where possible, the smallest factor. Because if you're going to use all of your energy to make a manifestation happen, are you going to be conscious long enough to actually have the conversation? You know,
probably.
are you know, or are you even going to be alive by the end of the conversation? So if you are going, even for certain kinds of invocation, having an entity that is used to being a lot more vast than a physical body will burn out a human body very quickly. So, you know, it is having that those considerations of how much is required when you see it and what you do. So to kind of still cover the invocation versus evocation, we're talking about it isn't necessary all the time. And you sure as shit do not want to be evoking a goddess 3 times a week just because you want to prove that you can. That is surefire way of pissing it off real quick, unless you are doing some big ass work. So, you know, there is that kind of finding the most appropriate time for these things to be necessary. Like with our challenge for witchcraft, which was 3, is going to be a bit different, but more about that in a minute. Go on.
So just to finish off, if a spirit is a fish, you can cry out to it all you like, but that spirit is not going to really be able to manifest properly. That fish ain't going to be able to manifest properly in front of you in dry land. Not really going to work. However, give it the right ecosystem contained within the land, i.e. a fish bowl with fucking water in it, that fish will be able to survive in that fish bowl. A lot of the time, people talk about constraining spirits and the like. That kind of is a bastardized version of back in the day when we created temple complexes and the like that were perfectly tailored to that spirit's specific energy. So they can literally, it's their ecosystem on the physical world. Their temple, their house on the physical world is designed to be perfect type of energy for that type of spirit to manifest and manipulate in. So it'd be kind of evocation really easily in that specific place. Okay, so really when you're talking about building your evocation ritual, you're talking about how do I create a physical body, whether that's in the form of a room that's containing the right energy for it to manifest, or in the form of an object, or whatever it is, in order to get that to happen. Now, we haven't really given away a huge amount of the secrets of evocation today. What we've done is made you think about it. So what's going to happen with Witch Wars 3, because Witch Wars 3 is called Evocation, funnily enough, we are going to get you to evoke something. Now, Would we go out and give you all of the answers straight away? No, that's not the way we work. We want you to help yourselves, because we help people who help themselves. So what we're going to do is launch Witch Wars free, but then what we're also going to do is put out little bits of content that are going to help with specific areas of evocation and invocation, so that what you can do is you can start experimenting over the next month. Okay? So rather than just give you a course, because we are working on one on evocation, we want you to try yourself to do an evocation with the spirit that we're going to tell you to. And then if that doesn't work, then you kind of do more and more research, more and more experimentation. And hopefully some of the resources that we're putting online for you, and of course the internet's full of resources anyway, but hopefully you'll start to be able to draw inspiration and ideas from that. And then by the end of the month, those, of course, that are successful with the evocation can tell us all about it. And, you know, if you've entered the Witch Wars competition and you successfully done the evocation, you will win a prize. So I think that's it. What we're going to do now is we're just going to have a little break and roll the intro to the Witch Wars free competition, and then we'll tell you all about Witch Wars free. Chris, does that sound good?
It does. You've got 2 very quick questions before we go.
Oh, okay.
That are there.
So
we won't cover that. We won't cover this now because that's a big topic.
What is your opinion on the so-called god names and forceful conjuration in the context of evocation? My personal opinion is that it is rude, unnecessary, and the people that tell you to do that, I would question why they tell you to do that. I think I've already made a video on that on Witchcraft Live when it came to evocation, invocation, and I think there was one on the Solomonic system, grimoire, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I will bump it to the top of the page. You can see my opinions on it then. Last question. Can you use items charged with your energy to maintain a hold? Depends what you mean by maintaining a hold. I could help guide a really, really big weight if it's being lifted by a crane and kind of nudge it and push it in the right direction. Wouldn't want to be holding that all myself. Probably flatten me. Similarly, with this sort of thing, with evocation, like Chris said, you don't want all of the energy coming from you, because it will literally suck you dry of energy. You probably keel over and die. So really what you're talking about is your energy is there not to raise the energy, but it is essentially your conductor of an orchestra. Remember, the conductor does not play an instrument. The conductor assembles the orchestra and essentially guides it. Magicians, magic wand, conducting, there's some symbology there. Go away and think about it. I think it's time for Witch Wars free. Hello and welcome to Witch Wars Free. It's officially here. Our scariest Witch Wars yet. Okay, so for those that don't know what Witch Wars is all about, we at the Thoth Witchcraft shop basically, thothwitchcraft.com, there it is at the bottom of the screen. Well, us at the Thoth Witchcraft shop, we do this competition every couple of months called Witch Wars. What we try to do is get all of the people which aren't used to practicing magic but kind of want to. We set them a little task, and then they enter into the competition trying to accomplish this magical task. And then if they manage to, they win a prize. Okay, so Witch Wars 3 is our third installment. Witch Wars 1 was all about spell work. Witch Wars 2 was all about psychic work and spying on people. Witch Wars 3 Evocation, is funnily enough all about evocation. So, we thought we'd get you to evoke a demon. What do you think, Chris? Yes, a demon. Okay, so the purpose of Witch Wars 3, what you need to do, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is for a start, you need to get your asses in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group so we can keep an eye on you, okay, and so that you can get more details that we'll be releasing in there to do with Witch Wars, a nice summary for you and a little bit of a guide to help with this. But essentially what you're needing to do is we're going to give you a symbol, a sigil even, from this book. It's called The Lesser Key of Solomon. It's a grimoire. It contains within it a lot of sigils, spirits. It's kind of like yellow pages, if you will, Chris, I think. Instead of telephone numbers, you get sigils. Okay, this is a picture of the sigil. Yeah, sigil. Okay, so with these sigils, they're almost like addresses. What we want you to do is download the PDF, Lesser Key of Solomon. Okay, or you can buy a copy if you want, and then go to spirit number 72, Andromalius. And what we want you to do is do a successful evocation of Andromalius. So call him pull him /her/it, whatever. Yeah. Summon it to physical manifestation in front of you. And then what you need to do is you need to get it to give you the secrets to its sigil /address. Why is this sigil how it is? What are the secrets of it? What is hidden in it? Why does it connect to that spirit? It is a secret. No, you won't be able to find it online. I've made sure. This is #new information. So that's essentially the task, is to do a full physical manifestation, evocation of the 72nd spirit of the Goetia, and ask it to tell you the secrets of its sigil. When you've done that, you need to message me or Chris, or you can email us at I don't know if I got the email here. Yes, I have. info@thothwitchcraft.com, and then you need to give us what you've been told, the secrets to this sigil. It's really as simple as that. Now, for those of you who want extra credit, and I know there are some teachers' pets out there that do love the extra credit.
They do.
It's been brought to our attention that there may or may not be some psychic scammers out there that are scammers pretending to be psychics, not scammers with psychic ability that use it to scam people. We're talking about fake psychics out there. #fake psychics.
#McDonald's psychics.
Basically, at the moot that I go to in Bristol, there's a certain couple of people there that had love readings done, a free love reading from this person Mary and this person Christian, and it all seemed a bit fishy. Why does it seem fishy? Well, what we'll do is we'll put a link to said website in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group in the Witch Wars 3 section, so you can read through it, and you can go and get your own love reading, I suggest you get the love reading and see what's fishy about it. Now, obviously, calling up a spirit from the Goetia, what many people consider to be demons, is quite scary. Might be scary to phone it up and call it up and conjure it up and evoke it and ask it for its secrets of its sigil, and then maybe not really get it to do anything else. So, given what you learn about the spirit, because you can question it and ask it and say, Spirit, what are you all about? What can you do for me? I want to make a deal here. Deal with a demon. Okay?
Faustian.
Oh, yeah, bonus points if you do it at Crossroads as well. That's not necessary, but if you do it at Crossroads, we'll proper big you up and probably, give a shout out to you on the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast or something. But
we
basically,
love a Faustian deal.
For those that want to get the demon, Andromalius, to do something, then we're suggesting that after you do this little reading, get this free reading with the psychics, Mary and Christian, that you maybe set that demon after them. Because you, like us, may think that they're scammers that deserve to be taught a lesson by real psychics and real witches. So you don't have to do that. That's not really a part of the Witch War competition. But we know how much you like to go away and fuck up bad people. And we're thinking that these people are doing some unscrupulous false advertising here. And so after you decide to get your free reading and confirm that, don't just take our word for it like you did in Witch Wars 1 where we told you to kill someone and you just went and do it. Go ahead and do your own research. The links will be in the Witch Wars Witchcraft Live Facebook group. Witchcraft Live Facebook group, look. It's down there. Chris, have I left anything out?
No. Well, apart from the fact next week's podcast is more specifically about Christian and whatever you said, Mary.
Yeah. Yes. So on the No Holds Barred,
so you'll hear a bit more about that particular story then.
Yeah.
But
Mystic Meg, I think the
Mystic
episode
Meg
was.
Yeah, I think is what we called it. So there's a bit there for you to go and do that. Obviously, there is room for you to cheat and use Invocation. But we would hope that you would aim for, in the space of the next 4 or 5 weeks until we get to Ask a Witch in the first week of August, that you would have actually given this a go. And even if you start with the Invocation, then get to Evocation, that would be brilliant. But the aim of the game is Evocation. So, which will
Evocation.
Evocation.
That's the one where you summon it in front of you, not inside you, not possession, not psychic work. It is literally, we want a physical manifestation in front of you. #scary.
Yeah. But to break that down a little bit, which is probably all I will do, is because that sounds a lot scarier than it really is. There's a particular reason that we have chosen a Goetic spirit rather than asking you to go and, knock on Hecate's door, is because, there is a certain part of this, the design of this kind of spirit that is designed for commanding. So, it is probably the safest target we could have given you, rather than actually asking you to go and find, Hecate or who's our other favourite one of the week? Oh yeah, the Fae. Yeah, we're not going to make you go scary. And do that. Would be scary.
There will be a Witch Wars at some point that will get you to do that.
Involve the Fae, but we'll see.
At the moment, we're just dealing with demons, so you ain't got nothing to worry about.
They're just demons.
They're just demons. I mean, who's scared of demons?
Exactly.
So there we go. Underneath the post in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group that will be going on tomorrow with all the details. Tomorrow is the 5th of July 2021. Okay. So this video will be going on there. And obviously details of Witch Wars 3 will be going on there, as well as the sigil. And in the group, in the file section, there will be a PDF download of Lesser Key of Solomon. that you can use if you don't
A
have
bit of
your own.
research.
Obviously, we are not condoning the rituals within this book, and we would personally not be using those rituals.
No.
So if you decide you want to go and use that ritual, that's up to you. Personally, I find it to be abhorrent, and I don't like that type of magic.
I don't like it.
But obviously, it's up to you what method you choose to use for an evocation. We're not going to tell you which one to use, but we will be putting on information and little kind of tidbits of useful material, both on the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast and also in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group to help you. If you have any questions, leave a comment below the thread or below the post in the Witchcraft Live group. I will make sure that it is pinned to the top of the page, unlike last time.
Yeah,
so,
and as always, obviously Patreons can go through their methods with us, and preemptive ask questions before they go ahead and do certain things if they're unsure, and kind of have those kind of conversations with us. If you're not already a Patreon, obviously you should probably go and do that. It allows you a lot more access to us and our mentoring scheme. So we are very helpful in all the free things that we do, but to get that real one-to-one access the way it should be done, the more traditional method of teaching and learning is more perfectly done one-to-one. So definitely worth the ridiculously small amount of money we ask for that. But yeah,
so
which was
mentoring by us or from us is available to all tiers of the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon. If you don't know how to do an evocation, then definitely get on the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon and ask us to teach you how to do it. We're not going to give you away the secrets of the sigil or anything like that, because that would be cheating. What we will do is we will help you with your invocation rituals and kind of teach you the basics of evocation. We won't, of course, do it for you. But if you want coaching on anything related to magic, then obviously that's what the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon is all about. It's for us to help you on your own magical path. So, Chris, have I left anything out? Have we discussed it all?
No, I think we're good. Like I said, bits will keep coming over the next few weeks, as they always do. The best place for all these discussions is with. So, have those chats with each other, get ideas off each other, and then obviously definitely have a go at this. Like I said, it's the safest that we could possibly make something like this. So really, go for it. Do it.
Yes. And remember, you are adults. If you end up ballsing it up, that's not our fault. You entered into the witchcraft competition knowing that magic is a dangerous art form. Okay? So if you're really worried about this and you do want to talk to someone about it and you want someone to coach you through it and teach you instead of messing about with forces you don't fully understand, then maybe get yourself a mentor. Doesn't have to be us, but obviously we do offer mentoring services on the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon, and it ain't very much, I tell you. It's super cheap. Okay, so get yourselves on there or experiment with your lives. But either way, please do post ideas
Tell
and
us
stuff
your
like
results.
that on the Thoth Witchcraft on the Witchcraft Live Facebook group. It's always good to see what you're up to. Other people might get some ideas. We do encourage you to post information about the type of evocation you're doing and your approaches and that. Just don't obviously post any information about the sigil, because we don't want others to cheat. But obviously, if some people are going for the Solomonic perspective, then do that. If other people are using other routes, then do that. It will depend. Everyone's going to take different routes, I should imagine, to their evocation. So it'll be interesting to see how you all do and the approaches, and it's good to learn from others. So there we go. And again, what we will do, like with all the Witch Wars, is we will announce obviously the winners and explain. We won't obviously give their identities away, but we'll talk a little bit about the winners and their approaches and the like on the next Ask a Witch, which will be at the beginning of next month, I think it is, isn't it, Chris? First Sunday of the month.
First Sunday.
First Sunday of the month. So there we go. Sleep tight, everyone.
Ooh, which is actually the first.
First. Scary.
1st of August.
Yes. So, any questions, of course? Main thing, get yourself in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group and ask. And yes, you do need to give us the information about the sigil, because obviously we will take that as you entering into the competition. Don't say, yes, I'm entering, and then don't bother giving anything to us, essentially, because we will take that submission of the information you find out from that sigil, the secret of the sigil, as your entry. Don't go right in underneath saying, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm not doing it, I'm doing it. What the fuck is that? Because that's not really very helpful to us. You can email us or you can private message us, whatever. Okay. But there we go. I think that's it. I might as well play the little intro video out again. See if you can see any little clues or any little funny things in it. Because I spent fucking ages making that. Goodbye.